This video will demonstrate how to match an invoice. These steps demonstrate the process to match all lines of an invoice for goods or services to all lines of the associated purchase order using the basic invoice AP 20.1 form. From the Lawson Financials module home screen, in the search box in the upper right corner, type AP 20 and press enter on your keyboard. The basic invoice form appears. In the company field, type the appropriate company number. In the post date field, type the date the invoice should post to the general ledger. In the vendor field, type or search for and select the vendor number. In the PO field, type the purchase order number noted on the invoice. If not automatically populated, in the third PO field, type or search for and select the applicable PO code. Note that not all POs will have a PO code. In the invoice field, type the invoice number. In the invoice date field, type the date of the invoice. In the handling code field, type or search for and select the appropriate option. Note, for invoices that include goods, they should always have the MAT match invoice option selected. In the due date field, type the due date noted on the invoice. In the invoice amount field, type the total amount of the invoice. If documentation needs to be mailed with a check, for example, remittance documents or a memo, you must mark the enclosure field on the Payment subtab with a yes. To do so, click the Payment subtab and mark the enclosure field with a yes. Note that you would also need to upload a separate document into OnBase. The OnBase document must be titled Enclosure and must include the vendor name and invoice number within the document. Note that any documents titled Enclosure will be printed by AP and matched to the check to be mailed. Now, click the Add icon. Next, click the Inquire icon. On the first line from the FC drop-down list, select the A Add option. Note that what you put in these lines may differ based on goods or services or other items on your invoice. In the invoice quantity field, type the quantity of line items noted on the invoice. Note that the UOM and unit cost fields should automatically populate based on the purchase order details. If applicable, adjust the values to match the invoice. If applicable, repeat these steps for each line item noted on the invoice. Next, click the Change icon. If applicable, upload supporting documentation in OnBase. For more information about uploading supporting documentation to OnBase, review the OnBase uploading instructions. If all lines on the invoice match to the purchase order will be automatically closed. If the purchase order still has lines pending receipt or pending an invoice, the purchase order will remain open. If the unit cost of the invoice does not match the purchase order, the status bar on the lower left will display the message, "All rule group match unsuccessful." If you have this message appear, you may want to review the information in the tips section of the training guide. If the goods have not been received, the status bar on the lower left will display the message, "Cannot match, no receipts available to match." Note that matching the invoice to the purchase order releases the invoice for payment. A matched invoice cannot be changed. To change a matched invoice, the invoice must be unmatched first. You have now entered and matched an invoice for goods or services, and the invoice is ready to be paid.